Okay, welcome to lesson 5. In this lesson, we will talk about an introduction to drawings. We're going to look at a few drawings and make 3D models based off of them. So with last lesson, we made this model right here, our 1, 2, 3 block. And remember, it was 1 inch tall, 2 inches wide by 3 inches deep. So this was, we learned 2 different methods in order to make that. We used the box feature, and then we also learned the way that we have on our screen here. We learned how to sketch. And here we have an example of that, our 2 inches wide, 3 inches deep, and then we extruded it up 1 inch. So in the real world, what does that look like? Well, let's take a look at our drawing. Now here is a very basic drawing. You can see in the top right, we have an isometric or a kind of a corner profile of our part. It looks exactly like what we have here when we press our home position or click our home position in our view cube. The part looks exactly the same. But then we notice we have 3 different views off to the side here. Well, what do these relate to? What do these correspond to? Well, usually, and we're not going to get into too much detail with in depth with drawings and all the different features. This actually is such a basic drawing, a professional would probably laugh at this. But remember, we're starting off slow, we're starting off simple so that you can understand. So this face, pretend we are looking at this face here. And what face is that? Let's go back to our part and we can see in our view cube. This face corresponds with this face. So what face is this? This is our front. Let's take a look at it. So as soon as we click the front face, look what we have right here. And remember, the width of our part when we're looking at our front face is 2 inches. Now, what about if we want to look from the top? Well, let's go back to our part. We're going to click on our little home button there. Now let's look at our top view. Well, there we go. It looks exactly like what we see right here. You can see if we're looking at the front and pretend we flip the part just like this. Let me show you. If we're looking at the part and we flip it in our hands to look right at the top, well, that's exactly what we're doing here. We're taking the front view and we're flipping it in our hands to look at the top view. And the top, from back to front, is 3 inches. This is our depth. This view is like we take our part. Let's look at our front again. And pretend we move the part in our hand like this. And we're going to look at the right view. Well, that's exactly what we're doing over here. We're looking at the front and then we flip the part and now we're looking at the right face. And this, I put a dimension on each of these faces so that we can see it's 1 inch high by 2 inches wide by 3 inches deep. This is a very, very basic drawing. So if you're given this drawing, you should be able to make what you see in the top right here. And that's exactly what we did last lesson, although last lesson we did not have a drawing. So today we're going to look at 2 new parts. We're going to look at this part and we're going to look at this part. Well, they're exactly the same, you might say. Well, when we take a look at the drawings say that they are the same, but let's take a look at our drawing here. This drawing is almost the exact same 1, 2, 3 block, but it has a hole in it. And this hole is a very specific type of hole. You can see here we've got some new terminology to learn. Let's see what this does. We're going to zoom in. If we look at this little emblem or this symbol, what does it mean? This refers to the diameter. And the diameter is from one extremity of our circle to the other extremity of their circle. And that's 1 inch from there to there. And this is how it's defined. We have a smaller hole on the inside that is 0.5 inches. And it is a diameter as well. So from one extremity of the hole to the other extremity is the diameter. What about the depth? Well, look at here, the big hole. And let me just prove it to you. We have the same dimension there. This is 1 inch, 1 inch across. This big hole is 1/2 inch deep. Let me zoom out here. So this 1 inch diameter and this are the exact same dimension. This 1 inch diameter, it goes 1/2 inch deep. And then the 1/2 inch diameter goes all the way through our part. So why are these lines dotted here? Well, these are hidden edges. It's like we're looking straight through our part with X-ray vision. Let me prove that to you over here. This is our part, and remember, we can go to display settings and go to visual style, and look at this. We can select shaded with hidden edges. Let's see what happens when we click on that. Ah, there we go. Now we can see the hidden edges, or pretend we have X-ray vision, and we can see right through the part. And there are the edges on the back of the part. Let's look at the front. Well, there we go. We can actually only see the face on the top or the middle and the bottom. And same if we click on the right. But our drawing here, it actually shows the full shape of the hole like it's cut in half. So that's what those hidden edges are, those dotted lines. Anyways, this drawing does give us all the information we need in order to make this part right here. So let's turn off those hidden edges. Let's just select shaded with visible edges only. And let's just take a little tour of the part. So there we go. This surface right here, this diameter, this hole is, well, let's click on it. Look at down here on the right. As soon as we click on that edge, the diameter is 1 inch. Let's click on the small one. There, the diameter is 1/2 inch. And the depth from this face to this face is also 1/2 inch, whereas the small hole goes all the way through the part. So how do we design this? Well, let's open up a new design and let's create this. So remember, we're working with a 1, 2, 3 block. So let's create a sketch just as we did with our last tutorial. This should be very easy for you. It's going to be 2 inches wide by, or 3 inches deep by 2 inches wide. Finish our sketch. Let's extrude it. Do you remember the shortcut for extrude? Let's press E. Automatically selects that sketch, and we're going to type 1 for 1 inch and enter. There we go. So now, in order to create a hole, just like this drawing here, let's create another sketch. So we're going to create a sketch, and instead of selecting one of those orange planes, let's select the top face. We can actually select any face that we want, but let's just select the top. Well, it orients our part, and look what we have. We have a bullseye right in the middle, and that's because we used our center rectangle. So everything is based off of the center. But we've already created the rectangle. Now let's create a center diameter circle. And does everyone see the shortcut for that? It's the letter C. So let's just press the letter C. Now look at what happens when we hover our mouse. It says place center point. Let's do that. As we drag our mouse over, look at it snaps to the center. And I can actually move my mouse a little bit, the cursor, do you see? But the square is still snapped to the bullseye or the origin of our part. So let's click with our left mouse button. And you see here, we can input a dimension. Do you remember this dimension? Let's do the biggest diameter first. It is 1 inch. And press enter. Well, let's do another circle by pressing C. And let's create another circle, the smaller one. Do you remember how big it was? 1/2 inch. So 0.5. There we go. Let's press enter. And remember, we can adjust these dimensions. Remember, as we scroll out here, look at, oh, it's kind of hard to see the dimensions. Well, we can move them by just dragging the dimension out. Let's move those. There we go. I'm going to put the 1/2 inch down on the bottom and the 1 inch. And do you see the arrows here? It goes from the outside extremity of the circle to the other outside, and it's 1 inch, whereas the inside is 1/2 inch. So let's finish there. Let's hit our home button on our view cube. Now we have these two circles. Well, what do we do with them? Let's extrude them. You remember the shortcut key for extrude? Well, we can either click up here or press E on our keyboard. Let's do it. So let's extrude our first or small circle first. So there we go. As soon as we click on it, we can cut right through the part. Look at that. So remember, we only have to go 1 inch, but there's a really cool thing in Fusion. Do you see here on the right on our dialog window? The extent type. We can base it off of a distance, or we can say all. And look at what the little message that comes up. It says all extrudes through all visible bodies. Well, let's select it. And there we go. Look at it automatically goes to the end of the part, and it even says how far it should go. It's 1 inch. That's perfect. Let's press OK. So now look at what we have here. We've got a small hole that goes all the way through our part. Isn't that great? Oh, and by the way, if you like to orbit the part easily, press Shift on your keyboard and your middle mouse button, and then you can orbit the part easily. Let's go back to our home. So what happened to our sketch with that larger diameter circle? Well, remember in our timeline, we created our rectangle as the first operation, or first feature. And then this second sketch are our two circles. So let's edit, or let's just click on that, I should say. And look what happens when I click on it. In our browser, underneath sketches, there's a bunch of these angled lines. Well, let's expand sketches. And there it is. It's either sketch 1 or sketch 2. So do you see sketch 2? There's a little eye off to the side. Well, that means it is hidden. So remember this, in Fusion, every time we extrude a sketch, Fusion is very smart and it assumes that we are done with that sketch. But in this instance, we're not. We'd like to bring it back and use it again. So let's unhide it. Now look at what we have. We have that small circle, the bigger circle, and we can even select our rectangular face here. So let's do another extrusion. Let's press E. And now this case, let's click our larger circle. And to remember how deep this goes, it doesn't go all the way through our part. It has a depth. It has a distance. Do you remember what it was? Let's go back to our drawing. Let's go to this view. And do you see it is 1/2 inch deep, or 0.500. So let's go back there. So again, we have to extrude. Let's click on that larger circle, bring it down, and do you see now it's in the negative direction because we're going into the part? Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. In this instance, it's definitely negative. So let's just type that, -0.5. We don't have to do the 2 zeros after. That doesn't really mean anything in this instance, but -0.5, and then press enter. And look at our sketch is still there. Well, now we no longer want it, so let's hide our sketch off to the side. And then we can minimize our sketch folder. So there we go, everyone. That is our part. That's exactly what we want. Let's just prove it. Let's click on the edge here and look down at our bottom here. The diameter is 1 inch. And this diameter is 1/2 inch. How do we prove the depth from this face to that face? Well, let's click on our Inspect button, our Measure button. Do you see the shortcut for that? It's I. So let's just press I. Inspect. So here, if we leave our mouse alone, it says Select Objects to Measure. So let's do that. Let's select this face and then this face. And look at what shows up. The distance is 0.5 inches. So it is perfect. Our part is perfect, everyone. Congratulations. You have just made your first part based off of the first drawing that you've seen. If we go back to our drawing, let's take a look at it here. And you will notice that we have how many different dimensions, or how many different notes we might say. Well, we've got 3 inches deep, 2 inches wide, 1 inch high. We've got 1 inch diameter, half an inch diameter. This is just kind of a reference diameter, or a reference dimension. And then we have this. So how many together? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, let's take a look at a better way of creating a hole. And by the way, the hole that we've created is a very special type of hole, and we'll get into the terminology soon. So let's take a look at our second drawing. What do we notice about this drawing? How many dimensions or how many notes do you see? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a lot easier. Not only is it easier, but it's the better way. It is the professional way. It is the standard way of defining a hole. So what do we see here? This little note tells us a lot of information. It says it always brings up the smaller diameter first, and it says the diameter of 0.5 through, T-H-R-U. It goes through our part. And then we have what it says right here is this shape is 1 inch diameter. And then this symbol right here, it shows the top surface going down. So it's a 1 inch diameter that goes down half an inch. So how do we do that with our part? Well, let's go back in time here. I'm just going to delete those features that we've just created. And let's start fresh. So instead of creating a sketch on our top face, we are going to select hole. Do you see the shortcut for hole? It is H. So let's click on it or press H. And then as we select our top face, we can select our hole, and look, we can drag it and it will actually snap right to the center of our rectangle. So actually I already defaulted it to the second one, but this is usually the hole that comes up right off the bat. Now let's just do what we've learned before with Fusion. We start top to bottom, left to right, just like we're reading English. And let's go to our first item here, hole type. You see our first hole type is called simple. That just means a straight hole right through. But look at our second one, counter bore. Well, let's select that. This is a counter bore. Now, usually what we have here is an extents. It says distance. It wants to know how far the smallest hole should go into our part. Well, remember, we can adjust this. And you see right now the dimension is 0.8. Well, look at over here to our right. This is like a little drawing in itself. And from top to bottom is 0.8 inches. So we want to go all the way through our part. Remember, if we want to go all the way through, what do we select? Let's go up here, extents. We want to select all. There we go. So that smaller diameter will go all the way through our part. Now let's go to our next one. This is the bigger hole on the top. It is 1 inch already. Well, let's just go to 1.5 for fun. Hey, there we go. We've got a bigger hole now. Let's go to 2 inches. That's a very big hole. But remember, this diameter should be 1 inch. And then our next dimension is the height of our bigger hole. And this should be 0.5. Well, let's just have some fun here. I'm going to type in 0.1. Well, that's a very short or shallow counterbore. Let's go to 0.2. You can see we can adjust this hole depth. 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Very good. Next, we have an angle of 118 degrees. Now, you might be saying, why does this say 118 degrees? Well, this is exactly the standard angle of a drill. So in the future, we would love to be able to manufacture or create this part, machine this part, and we would probably use a drill to do so. So this is just assuming that we're using a drill. But in this instance, we don't concern ourselves with the angle of a drill because our hole goes all the way through. And then our last dimension, well, this is our smallest dimension, 0.5. Remember, we can change this. Let's go 0.1 and see what it looks like. Oh, there's a tiny hole going through. Let's go to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. Perfect. So there we go. Once we select a hole or create a hole that way, look at how many items are in our timeline. There's only 3 items. Compared to, in the past, we created the hole using a sketch, and look at, there's 5 items in our timeline. So which one do you think is better to use, or a better way to create this part? Well, it's definitely using this hole feature. It might seem a little bit more complicated, but what that lets us do is finally, when we're creating our drawing, we'll be able to create this note instead of having a drawing that has so many different dimensions. It makes it more complicated. And just remember, if we have hundreds of holes in our part in the future, imagine if our drawing looked like this. Oh, it would be almost impossible to read. But our drawing, as simple as this, it's very easy. We're able to create the part that this drawing is specifying. So, at the end of this lesson, what did we learn? We learned 2 different methods of looking at drawings and creating a part from those drawings. We looked at one way to design a hole using sketches, and another way to use the hole feature by pressing H on our keyboard, or hole up here in our create drop-down box in our toolbar. And again, using the hole feature is the proper way of doing it. So, with next lesson, we are going to learn a new way of utilizing our hole feature and patterning it around a part. In future lessons, we are going to take more detailed drawings and make more complicated parts. As you get more skilled, this will become very easy for you. So, thank you for joining in. Thank you for watching this channel, this video today. And thank you for your interest in Learn It. Well, I hope that these videos are beneficial to you. If they are, I would really appreciate it if you were to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment below, tell me things that you're struggling with, things that you like, so that I can improve these videos. Anyways, hope to see you next time. Thank you again for joining Learn It.